Drink it in, man.
Deep left side carry on. Picks up a block at the 5, at the 2, at the 1 to the end zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions.
Drink it in, man.
Get up, Stafford throws. It is end zone. Caught! Oh, baby, what a catch! Kenny Galladay, you're a freak! What a catch! Touchdown, Detroit Lions! Cornbread!
I love the Lions! Say it with me! I love the Lions!
Drink it in, man.
Detroit Koolaid, what is going on, everybody? We are back, and I got me here, and I got the Big Hughes here. Big Hughes, what's going on?
What's up, my man?
Hey, man, thanks for doing this podcast. Everybody out there, you can send your hate tweets to @GrifkaDKC. Who knows what he's doing? We think he's sleeping. I'm sure he's got some important excuse, his kids, or who knows what he's going to come up with. But he's not here on the show tonight. But me and Hughes are burning the midnight oil here, talking about rounds 2 and 3 of the NFL draft. Man, oh man, Hughes. You know, I said this is my most exciting time. These are the biggest rounds.
Mm-hmm.
Tons of good football players on the board. And, you know, this is a tough one for me. This was a tough – the names the Lions took, the people that were still out there, I mean, it was tough to process. What's your initial thoughts?
Yeah, the same. I mean, I feel the same way. I mean, not only was it the names, but it was the positions that were taken. It's funny because, you know, me and you talked on the phone before the draft, and one of the topics that you brought up is, you know, possibility of us drafting, you know, positions where we just need to add depth. And I feel like that's what we did. But, you know, the last couple of podcasts we've had, we've talked about how really your second and third round, you want to find guys who you can plug in and start. But I don't think either one of these guys that we drafted tonight is going to be somebody that's starting when the season rolls around.
Yeah, man. Let's go ahead and do this, Hughes. We'll tell the folks who the names are. We'll kind of work through some of their measurables here in a moment. Let's take a quick pause for the cause. Do our sponsors with Anchor. We got to get them in here. We'll get right back and talk about these picks. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
All right, everybody, we're back. Man, me and the Big Hughes, you know, we're talking about rounds 2 and 3 for the Lions. Hughes brought up a good point right before the break that, you know, we had talked sort of about will they go with multiple safeties? They like versatile guys, safety corner. You know, they like could they add a linebacker because some of our other picks haven't worked out, or to add some depth. I think that's probably what they did, Hughes. But when you heard the name Johnny Tavai, I mean, what was your first thought?
My first thought is how far I got to scroll down to find this guy on my linebacker list.
Oh, and it's not a guy that was really on my radar. It's not somebody that we spent any time talking about. I mean, right away they said, this guy the Patriots like. It's like, I really don't get as annoyed by that as other people, because if you're going to mimic anybody, I mean, who would you want to mimic in the NFL?
Exactly.
So I don't take it as a shot when they say it. I say, like, hey, man, if we're liking and drafting and obtaining the players that Patriots like, we're probably on the right track. But, I mean, this was a guy that, like I said, I didn't know much about him. I've sort of tried to watch a little bit. I mean, he seems like a good tackler. He had like 17 and a half tackles for loss, which is a ton kind of from the linebacker position. I mean, again, I'm not sure who Hawaii is playing, but, you know, that was impressive. And I think 7 sacks or so is one of the numbers I saw. So it seems like he can get in the backfield, both in the run game and get people down on the ground, and he can also get after the quarterback.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it was interesting listening to, you know, Bob Quinn and talk about this pick. And one of the big things that stood out to me is it seemed like they love his size and his scheme fit more so than like the actual player himself, which sounds weird to say, but like that's what they raved about is, you know, you can't find linebackers with this kind of size. You can't find, you know, linebackers that fit this type of scheme as often as we could. So we're so happy to get him. And it was just really surprising to me because like you said, I mean, he wasn't anybody that was on our radar at all.
Yeah, and even when they talked about him, I think I sent you a link of these draft guys who just kind of do a YouTube show, and the one guy that was talking said, "Hey, this is a guy who was my sleeper in the second round, even though it might be a little bit of a reach." So I mean, he was on some people's radar. I mean, again, we try to talk the draft a ton, but full disclosure, I mean, we don't know all the guys across all these different levels, and I don't know. Like I didn't listen to Bob Quinn, but I feel like they do that sometimes. They just pick people based on height, weight, speed, and production, and then hope that it translates to the NFL. That probably seems like what this is from what you said.
Yeah, I mean, and it's funny too because in that same phone call conversation me and you had earlier, we were talking about, hey, in the second round, because we don't have a pick till later in the third round, is this somewhere where you might have to reach a little bit higher than you anticipated, knowing that you have almost over a round to your next pick? And when we talked about a couple of guys that we might take a chance on, but this guy wasn't one of them, but it happened to be a reach, even though it wasn't who we talked about.
Yeah, I just remember when we talked too, it was kind of like I brought up Mac Wilson as a coverage linebacker, but I mean, I thought I heard this guy can cover a little bit. He obviously can kind of fly around and tackle people. So, I mean, maybe he'll be an explosive athlete to watch. But, I joked with you guys via text that, I had a similar feeling as when they stepped to the podium and said, the Lions select Akakalima.
Right.
What was it? Gosh, I can't get the name right.
Akamala Francis.
5-0.
5-0.
They took this guy that just his last name was Francis. He was from Hawaii or something like that, and he turned out to be an absolute scrub. They tried to sell it as the same thing, Always got height, weight, speed, he's got the size, measurables, and he just never was anything. So, I just sort of felt that way for a while. But again, the biggest point to bring up is what we talked about the other night. Like, yeah, we can beat it up all day, but at the end of the day, we're not draft experts. We're not NFL GMs. Like, if Matt Pat and Bobby Quinn think this guy fits our scheme and is a need, like, I'm going to go trust it. I'm going to try to read up on him, watch some of his tape, highlights, whatever it may be, and kind of see what we got, because, I mean, another explosive linebacker would be nice. Agreed.
And I think when the pick came out, I think you were going with Justin Lane, right? That's who you wanted?
Yeah, that was my Lions pick. Yep.
Yeah, and I think I went with Greedy. So we're both on the same page with the corners. And we talked about last night, like, what are we looking at in round 2 or 3? We talked about corners and inside offensive linemen, and there's a plethora taken, but not part of us.
Yeah, man, I was debating between me and you. Also had to talk about Chase Winovich. Where do you have to take him if you think he's a fit? I was really debating, but I thought I did what I do sometimes, which is like, I'm going to gamble I can get him in the third. And, sure enough, let me look at my board here. He goes to the Patriots at pick 77. I mean, had everything worked out perfectly, and he slips another, we traded up to 81. So, man, only had to make it 4 or 5 more picks. And then right as, look who takes him. A team, similar scheme. They're going to make him an outside linebacker, D-end, rush guy, all that type of stuff. So I got burned on that, but he was on my radar. But when I looked at it, like, Justin Lane was 6'3", like 185 pounds. He was a junior, so he's a little bit younger than the other guys that were on the board. And he played for Mark D'Antonio. So I was like, this guy, he can tackle if he plays in the Big Ten and plays for that guy. That he's got some grit to him. He's obviously got the size, and he produced. He got better every year. So that's my explanation for going with Justin Lane. I thought it was a good combo when I already took a really explosive interior outside type rusher in Ed Oliver. So that was my thinking. What did you like about Greedy after we talked for months where, loved him and then off our board sort of due to, his mentality, lack of tackling? Like, what made you go back and want to take him as part of your picks?
I just feel like the talent and the potential that Greedy has was worth a shot in the second round. I mean, I always hated doing it in the first round, but I felt like the second round, you might as well. It's the gamble that we talked about earlier today.
Yeah.
You have a chance to take somebody who at one point in the draft process was projected to be, a top 10, top 15 pick, and he's still sitting there at 43. I mean, unbelievable cover skills. If anybody can get anybody to start making tackles and start playing more physical, it's probably Matt Pat. So I feel like he would have been a guy that was going to be able to be coached up and, take his game to the next level. And just the idea of Greedy and Slay and Justin Coleman and those other guys was, had my mouth watering a little bit.
Yeah, man, I agree. The value is something to consider there. I mean, Hughes, is it just me, or is the NFL draft absolutely ridiculous? I mean, we spend months and months reading up on guys, putting guys in different ranges, and then the draft comes, and probably over 40% of the guys that went in these 2 rounds were guys that I either had projected lower or was not really expecting. I mean, it's just absolutely nuts.
It is crazy, because we start getting this draft stuff ready pretty early. I mean, realistically, September, October, when the season starts, college football starts, this is when we start putting our stuff together, right? So we're spending a lot of time doing this. I mean, we have a better chance trying to predict lottery numbers at this point, because it's just like it's such a shot in the dark. It's such a throw a dart against the wall and see who's named there. It's crazy. I mean, you said it when we were talking during the draft, like how crazy this is. I mean, if you would have told me before the draft started that Andy Isabella was going to get drafted before DK Metcalf, I would have told you that you're crazy. But that happened.
Yeah, absolutely happened. But the thing that's nuts too, I mean, it's not like they're picking thousands or hundreds of players. It's a couple hundred guys. Like, right. It's 7 rounds with about 30 picks a round, and about 30 to 40 of these picks in these 2 rounds were guys that were just like, really? We got him 2 rounds later, or like you just said, why is a guy like, you could love or hate DK Metcalf. Why through the whole process is he a top 10, 15, 20-ish talent, and then the day before the draft you hear he's kind of slipping, and he almost got to the 3rd round. Like, I will never understand how that's not like figured out ahead of time.
It's crazy. It's crazy to think about. Like, everything that us as fans and probably some of the media have access to with these players and the projections and the numbers at the combine, the numbers at the pro day. I mean, that's really what we're going off of. But sometimes to me, it's just like it's the intangibles, it's the conversations, it's the interviews, it's the the interviews with the previous coaches, how they are with teammates, all that other stuff that we don't have access to is obviously where we're missing the boat with being able to project these type of draft picks.
But the craziest thing, Hughes, is Daniel Jeremiah gets paid tons of money. This is all he does, and he's got DK Metcalf as a 20th player, and he goes 60, 64. Right. I mean, like, this guy's 40 picks off too, and he's supposed to be the expert. Like, right. I don't know. I mean, I think these NFL teams, like you said, just have a totally different view, and I can't say one is right or wrong, because there's been plenty of times where you might look back in a couple of years and look at your picks and go, look, I got Brian Burns and Greedy in the first 2 rounds, and then who did you take in the 3rd? McGovern. The top interior guy. Like, that's not brain surgery. That's off of like the stuff we learned in the media, and those could all be studs.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and talk about this second pick. I actually had to pull it up here because, again, these 2 guys are off my radar. So Will Harris, safety, Boston College, and I think they called him more like a D-back, or I don't even know if they said cornerback or what, but they did praise him for being kind of a captain, a really experienced player. But I know DJ also said he's kind of a wild man. He will miss tackles. He'll kind of get out of lanes, things like that. I mean, to me, that's still kind of a fun player, because you make some splash plays, but we're going to be banging our head against the table when he's missing tackles, sometimes like Jared Davis does, or when a guy roasts and toasts him. But, I'll have to do a little more reading, but I thought this was a guy, too, that was a little down my list, a little off my radar. But Boston College had a pretty good defense. A movable safety is something we talked about maybe they would look for 3 safeties. It's just crazy how he's going above Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, how he's going above Deontay Thompson, how he's going above, some of these other guys that we have pegged if you are going to go that spot. But, again, you got to rely on the coach, and I just really hope it works out.
Yeah, I mean, another piece of the puzzle, too, is old Mother Goose, had him when he was coaching at Boston College. So, I mean, he knows him a little bit, and I think, one of the things that Quinn talked about with him is how he's got good ability on special teams, too. So, I mean, I guess if you're looking for a special teams guy in round 3.
I was just gonna say, please don't tell me that, because I'm fine with that in round 6, 7, and even in the 5th if you want to get kooky, but
Yeah.
not in the early
I
3rd.
know.
I mean, again, another trade up. Yeah, we only gave up like a 6th rounder, but like I will never understand how these guys think they have to move up for players like this. There was probably 4 safeties that we feel are better players, have better production, bigger schools, and here we are giving up a resource. We got to have Will Harris. I mean,
and those guys are still on the board, and we're only 10 picks away from picking again. So you gave up a resource to go get a guy that probably could have been there, when you picked at 88. I mean, something tipped them off that they had to go up and get him. But the other thing that angers me about that is when after Dallas took McGovern, it's just listening to Todd McShay talk about the versatility that he has. Plays center, guard. He's got the bend. He's got the hips. It's like everything all the boxes that Bob Quinn has on offensive linemen. It's like, why not pull the trigger on this guy? It's exactly what you needed to fill the right guard spot. It doesn't make sense to me.
Exactly. Hey, before I ask you a follow-up, did you just slip in there that you're watching Todd McShay and Mel Kiper? Have you went to the dark side, Hughes?
Yeah, remember I told you AT&T and NFL Network split ways. So I've been going on ESPN all the time. It's terrible too. I tell you. What's the guy's name? Is it Trey Wingo? Trey Wingo's he's got the most obscure, dumbest things to say about every single person that gets picked. It's the worst.
He's a freaking idiot. That guy, every time I watch NFL Live, it's like, hey, buddy, you don't have to try to be half funny on every break or at every chance you get. You can just talk football. I don't need these little wisecracks all the time.
Every commercial break they went to, he just talked about how much fun everybody was having. I'm just like, what is this? Like a circus? Are we waiting for the elephants to show up? I just wonder why are we so focused on fun here.
Oh man, gosh. Okay, so you got an excuse at least. I thought you decided to watch Mel Kiper because we've always been Mayak guys, and I'm definitely more of a Daniel Jeremiah guy than McShay and Kiper. But
I mean, I got the NFL Network app on the iPad, but you know how my technology skills are, so I just had to kind of fold it up for ESPN.
You'd be confused with that before you even knew it of how to get where you're going. So let me follow back up with McGovern, man. I thought that was a good pick by you. I was kind of circling through and on my list, when push comes to shove, we had a lot of stuff going on, a lot of working boards. We're trying to keep up with our Google Sheet on the computer for those that are out there and just so we could keep up. And when I scrolled up, I mean, Ben Powers for me was my top interior guy. But when you said McGovern and I did a little looking at him, I mean, he was the top guy. He was rated like a 5.7 on, I think it was NFL.com, and Powers was more of a 5.0, 5.2 guy, something like that. So a little bit higher. I just remember seeing that interview where Ben Powers just like, I want to just take the soul of the man across from me. And he obviously has been a 3-year starter, a good player. So that would have been my pick in the 3rd round. I couldn't really remember if he played left or right. Again, I'm pretty sure McGovern was a right guard, pretty exclusively. So I'm hoping that Powers would be too, because I know they can flip flop. I just wouldn't want to do that. But I thought, hey, let's fill that guard. Let's keep filling holes. I'd have a talented player, a cornerback fill, and a interior lineman fill, which I thought was good value. Pretty much same with you. I mean, you got a rush guy, a corner, and an interior guy as well. And then Grifka obviously copied all our picks when he called in because, he was lost.
Right. Yeah, his board ended on pick number 32.
Well, if you can hold on, where's the bell? Hey Hughes, if you go back and listen to a previous podcast, you'd hear Grifka say there's a drop off after pick 5.
Right.
So the yellow sticky note that he had a couple names on probably was done after about pick 8.
Yeah, he went up to the Rite Aid to get one of the NFL draft magazines, and they don't really go that far. So.
Oh my goodness! So
Grifka, we love you, buddy.
Oh, absolutely. Except when you sleep and don't show up to the podcast, then we can rip on you as much as we want.
He disappeared right after the 2nd pick when the Lions were back on the clock. We haven't heard from him since. So.
Oh yeah, he's sleeping in his lazy boy. I hope nothing worse has happened to the guy because we do love you, Grifka. But sleeping on NFL draft and missing a podcast, inexcusable. So again, I liked your McGovern pick. I really thought at that time that was a fill of a need. It was the highest ranked guy at the position. He came from a good school. I really think that would have been, a nice ad. And I'm just curious why they don't make moves like that, because it was pretty obvious. I mean, even if you think Ben Powers isn't as good of a player, that was a pretty obvious spot to take a guy like that. You waited 3 rounds. It's a big hole. You might want to fill it. I'm pretty sure you're not good with Wiggins or some of these other guys you brought in. But there were other players on the board too that I liked. So
Yeah, and it's confusing too because you got Ragnow who played center and now switched to guard. Year before that, you took Glasgow, who was a 3rd-round pick, who's played center and guard, and then McGovern, 3rd-round pick, could have been another Big Ten guy playing center and guard. So it's just like you have those 3 guys. Like, I mean, everything that Bob Quinn talked about, he loved about Ragnow was being able to play different positions, and this that screamed McGovern to me. So I don't know. It was confusing.
Yeah. I thought you did well. Just looking at, so we went through 3 rounds. I mean, again, we could be completely wrong on this podcast. I mean, this man, I got to figure out how to pronounce it. What do you think it is, that last name, Hughes? Give it to the people.
What?
I'm a 2nd-round pick.
Oh, let's see here. I gotta look at it so I can try to sound it out. Let's see. I'm gonna go with Tavai.
Okay. So, hopefully Tavai is an absolute monster, run sideline to sideline, blows people up. And then we'd like Will Harris to be a roving safety guy that can also cover and run and hit and have some leadership abilities. I mean, that would be ideal. But, Grifka says I love everybody. I'm definitely coming into this podcast pretty disappointed with day 2. Acknowledging that those guys know a lot more than we do. They met with these guys. They know their scheme better than we ever will. But, also sitting there going, there's just so many good names on the board. So what's your takeaway from day 2?
Day 2, I mean, ideally, when we came into today, I was hoping that round 2 and 3, we are getting guys who we're projecting to be starters, whether it be an offensive lineman or a corner to play opposite Slay. Something. I wasn't anticipating us just building depth at linebacker and safety. I mean, I'm obviously disappointed, but we say it all the time, and Bob Quinn we trust. So hopefully it works out.
Yeah, exactly, man. And the most disconcerting part is that there were guys on the board. I think in our 2nd rounder, if you wanted to get an explosive slot guy, AJ Brown was there. If you wanted him. There was about 3, maybe 4 corners that I wouldn't have minded, and then there was a pretty big drop off. So that's kind of why I decided to go that way. And then you get to the 3rd round, and you're looking there going, okay, there's safeties I like. If you want to go that route, there was interior linemen. Chase had went off the board, so I was kind of like done with the edges at that point for the most part. But listen to these names, Hughes. Just looking at my list, so. Name players that people will recognize that are still on the board heading into round 4.
Yeah.
Armani Aworiye, cornerback, Penn State. Hakeem Butler, big receiver, Iowa State. Some guys projected him round 1. We're in round 4. Yep. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, nasty safety out of Florida. Mac Wilson from Alabama. Julian Love. Amenahue, who's an interior rush guy I liked. You got Kelvin Harmons of the world, Deontay Thompson, Christian Miller, who you talked about, my guy Ben Powers. I mean, I can just keep going down the list. Riley Ridley's a good receiver, just sitting out there in round 4. Like, I don't know. I always tell Grifka you can get good guys in round 4 or 5, whatever, but I'm just almost half annoyed that there's all these good football players that are out there and that we just took guys that are off most fans and people's radar, other than, damn, they better be good, because we could come into like week 4 or 5, whatever it may be next year, and go, man, these guys are ball players, and then we'll have to tip our cap, no doubt about it. But at the end of draft day 2, we're sitting here shaking our heads, confused.
Yeah, it's crazy, but like you said, there's still, I'm so surprised that Aworiye is still on the board. I would say going into the next round, he's probably number 1 on my board as far as players available. So it'll be interesting to see how long he's on the board. You mentioned Julian Love. I mean, even a guy like Isaiah Johnson from Houston, good size, good coverage skills. He's somewhat good. But there's so many receivers that are available. I'm surprised, like you said, Hakeem Butler, Kelvin Harmon still out there, Riley Ridley, Stanley Morgan from Nebraska. I mean, there's a lot of guys out there. So I don't know, man. There's a lot of ways that they can go. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, man, it's crazy. So, I mean, lots of good players out there. I thought me and you worked our tails off trying to keep up with this draft, trying to track it as best we can, but they were coming in fast and furious. The Lions traded up, gave up a resource, got a couple players most people don't know about, but hey, man, I'm going to watch more video, and if Tavai can run and hit, that'd be exciting on Sundays. You know, the couple clips I saw of Harris, as much as he wasn't really a need at that point, I kind of looked at him and go, okay, I could see. Brought up a good point with maybe the coordinator having some familiarity. That always helps. And but yeah, it can't just be depth. It can't just be special teams guys. These have to be guys that you have a plan for and that come and make plays. I mean, you don't take crazy depth projects in rounds 2 or 3. You just don't do it.
Yeah.
So. All right, Hughes. Well, this is usually where I ask Grifka, you got anything else for the people?
I just have a couple of random things. So one, Pat McAfee needs to be in front of a microphone a lot more. I thought.
Hold on. You are a Pat MacAfee hater. I've been the guy that's been repping Pat McAfee all day.
Until today.
It's hilarious.
When he talked about a chimpanzee making the pick instead of him. I thought that was gold. And the other play is did you notice that Jim Brown said this was the 2013 draft?
Hughes, how could I not notice that, man? I felt bad for the guy, but oh my goodness, like this is your one chance to get your name read, and my man was 6 years off. like I feel so bad for that player. I mean, you better go to the cutting room floor and do some editing to get that right, because that would suck.
It got to the point where I was keeping track of how many times people would mess up, like 2019. Like it was so hard. Like they just wanted to go with NFL 2019 NFL draft. Like every single person, it was ridiculous. And Billy Sims was just terrible when he announced for the Lions. I was just so confused on what was happening.
Oh man. So let me say this to that. Or what does Nate Burleson say? I said all this to say this, or I said all that to say this. Like, I'm so glad you brought it up, because not only when he said it, like when that guy that he said 2013 was a heck of a good football player. Was that Greedy? That was Greedy.
It was Greedy, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Can you imagine Greedy like playing that for his boys or playing that for people, and they're like, you got drafted in 2013? like he's gonna try to play that back for his kids. Kids can be like, damn, you're old, man. I thought you got drafted in 1-3? I
don't even think Greedy was in high school in 2013.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's my big problem with Jim Brown. I mean, God bless him. It's probably like he's got a couple screws loose, but I don't mind if you maybe when the calendar turns over and you're signing off your, a document at work and you're putting the year prior. But my man missed it by 6 years. Like that's not I accidentally called it 2018. I messed up. That's just. I never seen that before. I mean, the most you can ever be off is 2, I think, and that would be bad.
Yeah, and it's not like it's just right on the card you're reading off of. like going back to the Lions video of the call of Hawkinson. It's like when Martha pulled her shades up and was writing it down. I think Jim Brown needed to borrow Martha's shades.
And here's my other worst part about it is that he didn't go back and try to fix it.
No, he just went with it.
He read it and probably didn't even realize that not only did he miss it, but who knows what year it is in Jim Brown's head. So, like I said, a great football player, but oh my goodness, like that's one of the biggest gaffes of all time. And like I said, I feel bad for the player, but there was some funny stuff going on across the board with the announcing, but I love the guy with the big booming voice. Like, I mean, that guy's voice is just absolute gold that was announcing everything. Yeah. But man, like every time I turned around, they were announcing another pick. Like I thought it was crazy rapid fire, but
and the other part too is when they show, like, I feel like these fans they have in attendance, like up front, are like paid actors. Just like,
right.
Because if you see a lot of people wearing a 19 jersey that says NFL draft across the back, like, here, we're gonna hire you to be extras. Wear this, and then like they're like anticipating the pick, and then like these two old ladies are standing up front, and they announce it, and they just start cheering. It's like, come on, you have no idea who this person is. Let's be honest with each other.
Yeah, and the other thing that kills me, Hughes, is like, you know how we're like we're huge Lions fans.
Yeah.
But I mean, you see these guys that are 45, 55 plus years old, like paint head to toe,
Sure.
the shoulder pads. I mean, you know me, I like going to events and getting a little crazy.
Yeah.
But you don't see me dressing up like gosh, the Lions. Let's not even get started on the guys that dress up like Lions. I mean, that's absolutely embarrassing. But could you imagine like dressing up, painting yourself to go to the NFL draft? I mean, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, because a lot of those guys got there like 2 PM, so you're standing there for close to 12 hours. Just
with your beads and your shoulder pads and your painted face and head, and oh my goodness, like you said, that I think it's real, but it definitely seems gimmicked, and that's what they do at those Super Bowls when they have the little concert. They just get a bunch of teenagers and hype them up on like Mountain Dew and say, "Go be crazy for like 10 minutes."
Yeah,
and they just go nuts. So I think that's kind of what the people up front do. But
it was entertaining, that's
for
sure.
That's one word for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, there were some classic moments. So, gosh, we'll have to see. I mean, there are 4 more rounds left, which is crazy. I feel like it's been exhausting getting through these first 3, which I usually don't feel this way.
Yeah.
But
it's coming fast and furious. So many trades trying to keep up with who's on the clock next. I mean, it was a lot happening.
Exactly.
There's no doubt.
Exactly. Or I'm real excited. I thought I'd walk out of today going, all right, not only does our first round pick look better, but now we got 4 rounds to really beef it up. And now I'm thinking these next 4 rounds, like we gotta either hit some home runs or make up for some stuff, in my opinion. Now these next day is not a walk in the park. It's like, man, you got work to do now.
Yeah. So we got, after giving up that 6th round pick, we got 5 picks to make tomorrow. So
yeah. Yeah, those are gonna be crucial, and I hope they, I don't mind these names we don't know, but I would like 1 or 2 more names where we've seen their college production. We feel like they're filling needs, filling holes. I don't want 4 or 5 more guys that are projects, special teams. Like, oh, we see something like. We know good football players when we see it, and I need a few of those heading into the end of this draft for our Lions. So
yeah, I agree.
Let's hope they get it done. But like you say, we kind of beefed up the defense in day 2 to some degree, and then we have offensive playmakers. So we'll see what they do.
Yep.
In day 3 and Bob Quinn we trust. So I'll go with you on that. But Hughes, thanks a ton, man, for taking some time, chatting it up, and having a few laughs here on the show. We'll go ahead and get this out to the people and get some of their reactions, man. See what others thought about it as we move forward. Yep. So good stuff, man.
Absolutely. Less than 12 hours from round 4 starting, so it's gonna come fast.
All right, buddy. Well, I appreciate all your hard work. We've really been working hard on that Google sheet and all the draft stuff. So thanks again, and thanks for coming on the show. And Grifka, thank you for nothing. And we'll be back. After tomorrow. We're heading into the weekend with some podcasts as well, finishing up this draft. Got to finish it strong, man. Let's do this thing.
Absolutely.
All right, buddy. Take care.
Yep.
Thanks a lot. Everybody out there, we'll catch you next time right here on the Detroit Koolaid Cast. Take care, everybody.
Pack the bag, start the plane. This game is over. It is over. What a comeback by the Lions.
Drink it in, man.